16 December 2022. This Skidmark is going to be about Eskom, and it will be aptly named Eskom for Dummies. The reality is that we have a major problem. Everybody can see it and everybody knows it. And there are reasons for these problems that we have. They just didn't happen out of the blue. There was a lot of things that went wrong to get South Africa at this point where we are today with severe power shortages. Now, I'm not going to try and sit on the green shit and all that, because it is quite obvious that green plan is a shit plan. And this morning Nick Headley made a post on Twitter and where he tried to be very clever, and he reckons to be on coal-fired plants is 30 years behind developed countries. What a shit fucking statement is that? I asked him, and he will not answer. I know he won't answer. And I asked him and said, okay, so the fact that Germany is now firing up their coal plants means they're 30 years behind South Africa. But that guy is known for making fucking stupid statements on Twitter. And this morning in one of his tweets, he boldly stated that he's not technically minded. And I reminded him that that is quite true. Because, yes, that oak can make shit posts about green energy. He must think twice before he tweets. But let's start with what is the problems that we have. Now, these problems, I'm not going to try and say that the problems is, all of them is correctly in line here. I'm just going to name a number of the most prominent issues. I want to give credit to Des from 00 Des. I listened to his videos, and I've listened to many other, and I have read a lot. And incidentally, I grew up in the house of a miner. My dad started off as a training miner, happy miner, or whatever, the lowest rank you can get, and he worked himself up to manager. And I grew up on the coal fields here in the Witbank area among mines and power stations. And I've had many family members working on the mines, working at Eskom and so forth. I understand a bit about the logistics involved around a power station and a mine. But I'm not going to dwell on that either, because that's not really important now. There are a few simple facts that we have to take in consideration when we talk about the Eskom problems, and we have to stick to that. Now, we've got a generation capacity problem, and that is mostly because of two reasons. One, the aging of the fleet, and two, the failure of building new plants on time. Up to 1994, South Africa never knew power shortages, and we had the cheapest power in the world and the most efficient power supply company in the world. And you can go and check that. You can easily check that. But after 94, things started going wrong. Another problem is that Eskom has lost a lot of skills. Now, whether you can think about it and discuss it and debate it as much as you want, to run a highly technical operation like Eskom, you need skilled labor, really skilled labor. And we know with BEE, Eskom embarked on a mission of getting rid of all the white people, as many of the white people as they could, without realizing that they're losing years, lifetimes of experience, They were replaced with BEE appointments, and these guys are just not up to standard and up to scratch. Then the next problem is the coal quality. Now, if you understand how a coal-fired power station works, and I'm going to keep it as simple as possible, you've basically got, let's call it a drum, in which you're going to make the fire, and then there's a lot of pipes inside that drum that contains water, and the heat from the fire turns that water into steam, and that steam is what drives the generator that make the turbines that makes the electricity. So you've got a drum. Now imagine a 44-gallon drum. All of us know them. That drum is there, and inside it's full of coils of pipes, and those pipes are full of water, and the fire heats that water up and turns it into steam, and the steam goes out of the drum and turns the turbine, and then from the turbine the steam goes through the cooling towers and the water condenses and it comes back for recycling. That is the base principle as far as the power generation is concerned. Now over the years, over many years, Eskom engineers has gained a lot of experience in the design of these boilers, and not the top quality coal in South Africa was used in Eskom. The Eskom boilers were designed to use a little bit lower quality coal because that was more abundant. But if you think about that drum, if that drum, the Eskom engineers found out that that drum must lie horizontal. In other words, it must lie on its side, not stand upright. The reason for that is because of our coal quality, there's a lot of ash and leftovers once the fire is burned out, and that must be removed. Now, on a vertical drum, it stands upright, and that ash chokes the outlet and builds up inside that drum, and it's a hell of a problem to get it out. Whereas on the horizontal drum, it is a longer surface on which the ash is caught up and lands and ends up, and there's more opportunity for getting rid of that at the bottom without choking the drum off. And that is what happened at Medupi and Kusile. The ANC jumped into that fucking story there, and they made dirty deals with Australians, and they changed the design, because that station was already, those two stations were originally designed by Eskom engineers. And these clever blacks gave the boilers to an Australian company, and they made vertical boilers. And that is the cock that you now hear from Medupi and Kusile, where there's major refurbishments that must be done because those vertical boilers failed. Now they must be replaced with horizontal boilers, and that's going to take a lot of years to do that. But they say thank you to the clever ANC pirates that stole billions out of the building project and bought the wrong equipment because they could get more kickbacks and money from there. So there's your one problem about Medupi and Kusile. Now the next thing is the coal quality. I have spoken about that, and so the Eskom engineers originally designed our power stations to operate on a little bit lower quality coal. Not the top quality coal was needed, but it is very important that the coal that arrives at the power station is clean coal. Now what these cadres are doing currently at the mines, they drop rock into those coal. Pieces of rock to run up the weight so that they can get more money. And that rock lands at the Eskom plant, and when it goes in the final crusher, before going into the boiler, those rocks, first they damage the crushers, but if they go through the crusher and is crushed smaller, the moment that that rock lands in that hot fire in the boiler, those rocks explode. And in that explosion, the splinters from that rocks puncture the boiler tubes. That's the one thing. The other thing is, with the low quality of coal that is now delivered to Eskom, the sulfur content is high, the ash value is high, and the pyrrolic values are low. So those things, if they are running at full speed, they are only about 60 to 70% efficient because of the low quality of the coal. Now, another problem is that high sulfur content of the coal. That sulfur is exceptionally corrosive. So, between the heat, the water, and the sulfur, the corrosion is rough on those boiler tubes. And that is also why the boiler tubes fails. So we've got that. So that's actually a human-made problem that can easily be avoided. First, get good quality coal. If you get good quality coal in there, all of these other problems disappear. And those plants, existing plants, can run at 100% efficiency. That's an easy step. That is something that can be resolved in a matter of 1 or 2 weeks. Not years, 1 or 2 weeks. And by giving good quality coal to Eskom, immediately all these breakdowns are going to be cut severely. So good quality coal is going to give us hotter fires, which means more generation, plus it's going to cut on breakdowns. That's an easy step. But it will not happen. Because the ANC cadres are selling our good quality coal and exporting it to Europe, they are making a ton of fucking money, and we are suffering with low performance from our power stations. But they don't care. They don't give a shit. I want you to understand something. It is my opinion that the white Afrikaners of South Africa are true patriots. We want this country to work. The blacks that are in charge are terrorists. They want the country to fail. They've got a lot of money stashed away, and they will jump on the first plane out when the shit hits the fan. But it is you, the voters, those millions of our people, you are going to end up sitting there with nothing, and as the WEF has correctly labeled, you will be a useless eater. But these cadres that you are forever voting into charge, they will be gone and you will suffer. Then we've got transmission sabotage. Now we know the transmission sabotage is mostly because of cable theft. But there are other little things that the guys are doing at the power stations that is also fucking serious. But these are things, the transmission sabotage. Eskom must be ring-fenced into a national emergency, and the military must be deployed to all the power stations and all the power substations to make sure if anybody tries to damage Eskom infrastructure, they must be killed, they must be shot, because they are terrorists. That is the first thing that can be done. Unleash security on these thieves that are stealing the infrastructure of Eskom. Then the political interference, we know that, and I have spoken about it. The reason is simply there are a few cadres that are making a lot of money, and that's all they're interested in, and they've got zero technical skills or qualifications to be near something like Eskom. Then there's the Eskom bad debt. Why is there bad debt? Because of the corruption and bad management of municipalities. The municipalities are reselling the Eskom power to the consumers pay the municipalities, and the municipality corrupt cadres are stealing that money and not paying it to Eskom. In 2015 I offered Eskom, Agter municipality, our local municipality, an option where we can do the collections of their monthly accounts from the consumers And my software was designed to be able to strip the Eskom part off and pay it out over to Eskom immediately. And lo and behold, that plan was trashed within a day. And one of the guys that introduced me to the guy that I had to talk to at the municipality said to me, it will never get through because they will not allow the Eskom money to go out to Eskom like that, because that is where they steal. So, fix that. First, I think the quickest solution is consumers must stop paying the municipalities for electricity. Consumers must pay Eskom directly. And I've spoken about the design issues at Medupi and Kusuli. And then we get to maintenance and upkeep. Now, maintenance and upkeep, that is severely affected by corruption, by Eskom being forced to only deal with BEE companies, and then lack of skills. The guys that really know how to maintain these plants are no longer there. Solidarity offered them, I think, 180 names, and out of that 180 names up to today, I think only 3 was appointed. Ask yourself, why is the government not willing to bring the skills back? But it is a case of they are white people, and this South African, our people, they would rather die at the hands of a black guy than to make a living and have a future with a white guy in charge. That is the reality. Then we have got another thing. In the old days, power stations were built next to the coal field that will supply that power station. The mine was the one part of the project, and the power station was the other part. And that mine transported the coal or delivered the coal to the power station in one of 2 ways, either by conveyor or by rail. Now we know that under Vakile's watch, the rail system was destroyed in South Africa, and they created these trucking millionaires that were carting the coal from the power station, from the mine to the power station. Now, there's a lot of things, other things happening on the side. In that transport process from the mine to Eskom, in between those 2 points, coal are being stolen. High quality coal is dumped and replaced with low quality coal and then delivered to Eskom. Those things, people has been caught and it's been proven. That is one of the big things. And the guys are making a fortune with the trucks, but it's costing Eskom now 8 to 10 times more to get the coal from the mine to the plant than it used to be with rail or with conveyor. And that is what, in a nutshell, is the major problems at Eskom. Now I want you to take a look at this image. This is a typical power station, coal power station. Now the greenies made a hell of a fucking story about this. Now if you look there, there's one long stack, smokestack, with smoke coming out. That is the smoke from the furnace. Now, over years, things has been done to that smokestack, scrubbers and things, to take most of the poisonous exhaust fumes out. A lot of progress was made on making that smokestack run cleaner. And there's a lot of CO2 that comes out there, and it is proven by many scientists that CO2 is not a problem, because the more CO2 you have, the more green plants you have, because green plants love CO2, and it is a minute percentage of the total atmosphere. Minute, extremely small. So it's all a bullshit story. They look at the smokestack and they make out of it a monster that it is not. What you see on the right hand side there, on those other cooling towers, that is just steam. but they will show you an image like this and tell you it's a major polluter. So they talking shit, and that they build their whole fucking miserable green plan on images like this that they throw into our faces. They're talking shit. Now here we have a graphic of how a power station works. You can see the coal comes in and then it goes into the furnace and it makes heat that turns the water into steam that drives the turbine, and then that steam goes back through the cooling tower and it circulates and power is generated. Now in this sketch you can see that that furnace is horizontal and there is a lot of options. It's not scaled correctly, but there's a lot of options at the bottom of that furnace to get rid of the ash and the leftovers after the coal is burnt out. There's a lot of room to take that out. Now if you look at the next graphic, you will see this is a vertical boiler. And if you look at where the coal is coming in, now as I said, if there's rocks in that coal, there at the crushing and pulverizing is where your first problem comes. And then when those rocks land in that boiler, those rocks explode and the splinters puncture the tubes that is heating the water, that contains the water that's going to be heated to steam. And if you look at this thing, you can see it funnels down and then the solid waste is taken out. Now with the low quality coal that we have in South Africa, that funnel chokes up. The solid waste can't get out. And that is what happened at Medupi and Kusile. Okay, I hope you understand this a little bit better now. Our problems, there is things that can be rapidly done to very quickly make a difference. And it is, first, bring better quality coal to the stations. That's not rocket science. Just get better coal to the station. The moment better coal goes into the station, into that boiler, there's going to be less ash, there's going to be less sulfur that can corrode the pipes, and you won't have the rocks that punctures those pipes. And that boiler can function with the solid waste that can be taken out, because with the rocks and all of that, it chokes that thing up very quickly, so it's a major problem to clean the ash and the solid waste out. So, simple. Bring good quality coal to Eskom. How is that going to happen? By the politicians making the decision and say, listen, before you, Mr. Miner, before you can supply anything to Richards Bay for export, you must first fulfill your contract with Eskom. And the surplus that you mine, you may export. Simple, quick. But is there a politician that has got the balls to do that? No, because then they can't steal. So, make peace with it. We've got shit at Eskom because of shit coal, and it's because the politicians want shit coal in that power stations. That's it. The second thing is, bring the skills back that exist in our country. Bring those skills back. They know how to drive that Eskom. Bring them back. What is better? Skilled people making sure you've got 24/7 power, or BEE qualified people that cannot keep the fucking lights on? You make the choice. Make the choice for yourself. And I think that my personal opinion is that the disaster at Eskom, the blackouts and brownouts that we experience now, is going to be morphing and changing into an ANC out situation. The government is going to fall. Eskom is going to make the government fall. They are beginning to realize that. And now they're running around like headless chickens. They don't know how the fuck to do it, because to do the things that will stop the ANC collapsing, or the government collapsing, not the ANC specifically, the government will collapse. Eskom will make the government collapse. And whatever they need to do to prevent that is automatically going to mean a shitload of cadres is going to be out of pocket. So these politicians are between the tire and the tube. But it's for us, the citizens, we should put pressure on them and make sure that they listen. Fuck this BEE stories. Fuck this apartheid blaming stories. Reality is our country is sinking now. And I'm going to end this with this graph. Coal-fired power generation percentage of totals. Look at that. Look how high is Poland's percentage, 97. Luxembourg, 94. Germany, 87%. And you can stop the thing. United Kingdom, 80%. You can stop the thing and look at it in care. Don't let these green guys give you a shit story about the renewables as the answer. Renewables can help. But if Eskom are serious to bring help in the form of renewables, Eskom will make sure that we, the Eskom users, and I'm talking about the home users, Eskom and the politicians can make it possible for more home users to implement solar at their homes, rooftop solars and so forth, which will help the national grid, obviously. And they can do it by giving these private owners a decent tax break, plus Eskom can give them fees discounts. Look, the ideal is Eskom pay them for the excess they generate and push into the grid, but that is a complicated story. What Eskom can do is say, okay, you are doing your own thing and producing your own power, your grid connection is going to cost you so much, and it's a small fee, and that's the end of the story. And then when you start using power from the grid, obviously you pay the normal fees and so forth. But the current plans that are there, they're going to penalize us like fucking hell. In my case, if I go totally self-sufficient with solar, which is going to cost me about 300,000 rand, it will, and I maintain my Eskom connection for those days when there is a problem, I will still be paying roughly about 40% of my monthly bill, which is bullshit and it's not right. So that is one thing that they can do immediately to help take pressure off the grid. And the other thing, as I said, get better coal to the power stations, bring the skills back, and seriously look at alternatives. I believe between the Russians and the Chinese, they are now also looking at smaller reactors. Instead of building one huge plant that will supply a part of the country, they're doing smaller localized reactors that will provide to a city or a region, something like that. And the new technology is getting better and better. The Russians have done a thing in the Urals about a month ago. I spoke to about it in one of my Skidmarks, where they basically now completed that full cycle. They closed the cycle or something on uranium, which means that once that reactor is loaded and started up, it won't be necessary to refuel it for 100 years. I see there was something that was published yesterday about the Americans that are now closer to fusion, but the Chinese are ahead of them. It's because the Americans are not working with the rest of the world that they think sometimes they've got these massive breakthroughs. In any case, I hope this helps and gives you a better idea of what the fuck is going on at Eskom. And please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you very much for your time.